to my channel. And how are you guys doing today? I am doing great. I love this shirt. Like, this shirt is so comfortable. Imagine I bought this shirt for 150 bob. A snatch, a deal. And the material is like really great. But anyway, that's not why we're here today. Today we're actually here with another true crime case. We are here today to be talking about the case of Miss Janet Karamana from all the way back in 2009. Now, before I head into this video, I just have a few disclaimers. Today we will be talking about like familial tensions and like someone crossing somebody else. I will also be discussing themes of, somebody being kidnapped. And yeah, those are the kind of disclaimers. I don't know if those can really be themes of something, but those are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about today. And without further ado, because I don't want to talk too much, because some of you have complained that I be talking too much in the beginning of these videos, let's get right into today's video. Now, on the 3rd of March 2010, a Mr. Moses Gituma, who was actually a very good family man to his wife, Janet Karamana, and his kid, Kevin, as well as, his family members, he was just an overall good man, would be pronounced dead after fighting for his life for the past 5 months. Now, you're obviously wondering, what happened, Paige? What's up? Now, we have to trace back the events to the 23rd of October in 2009. That is the previous year, for us to be able to understand exactly what happened. So for today's case, we're going to be working kind of back to front for us to be able to understand exactly what led to the events that took place, or well, the death of Mr. Moses Gituma. Now, to understand exactly who the deceased Mr. Moses was, we have to give a deep dive into his life. Now, Mr. Moses was a senior manager at the Central Bank of Kenya, and he was wealthy. His life was very well put together, and financially, career-wise, he was doing great. However, in terms of family, he was also doing really well. I don't even know why I said however. He was actually a married man. I couldn't find exactly how many years he was married for, but Mr. Moses was married to a Mrs. Janet Karamana. And I didn't find like I said, I didn't find the amount of years that they had been married for, but the two of them, honestly, according to their family, they didn't have like crazy issues. The family was a very happy one. The two of them would have a son named Kelvin. I didn't see reports of any other children. The two of them had Kelvin when they were much younger, because when this case takes place, Kevin, not Kelvin. Why am I saying Kelvin? Kevin seems to have been like a teenager, so he wasn't like a little boy or anything. He was a full-grown man. On top of the successful family and career Mr. Moses himself had, he and his wife also owned a very successful salon in Garden Estate in Nairobi named Moto. Now, according to what I could gather, the two of them were collecting like 20K from the salon a day. You guys comment down below. You guys that are doing saloon work, you guys are collecting 20,000 a day. Where pesa ziko, by the way, si ati nini. Wow. Now, on the 23rd of October in 2009, the couple would leave the house as usual. Miss Janet, who used to be the one who would run like the salon, would go to the salon in the morning, while her husband Moses would go to the Kenya Central Bank, basically for his job, child. Miss Janet used to come home like hours before her husband did on like a usual day-to-day kind of endeavor. And so on the night of the 23rd, Miss Janet would finish like up with her last client at 6:40. Now, instead of going home at 6:40 as she usually did, Miss Janet said to the last client of the day that she would actually be staying behind to like accommodate a fundi, because the client asked Miss Janet, "Would you like me to carry you home?" And then Miss Janet was like, no, it's okay. Today I won't be going home at 6:40. I'm going to stay behind because there's a fundi that's going to come to fix some things. Now, Janet would be left behind with one of her employees, Terry, and Terry would also offer to walk Janet home or anything, or like give her a ride, etc. But Janet honestly was just like, no, you guys, like, I'll lock up, don't worry. She basically said the same thing to Terry as she had said to her client. So Miss Janet stays behind. Terry is gone. The last client is gone. And Janet is the one who stays behind to lock up the salon. Now, Janet would text her son, Kevin, to like not bother coming to walk her home, because usually when she didn't get a ride from like a client or something, she would call Kevin so he could accompany her home, because she used to go home late. So she texted her son and told Kevin, you know what, don't worry, don't come and get me. I'll be fine. I'll walk home by myself. So all this time, she's waiting for the fundi, told everybody, I'm waiting for the fundi, told Kevin, don't come, I'm waiting for the fundi, right? From what it seemed, the fundi never came, but also there was no information as to who the fundi was, what they were coming to fix. Nobody knows if the fundi ever came or not, but eventually Janet decided to leave the salon. Janet says she would decide to leave the salon and she would lock up and everything. And while she locked up, she carried a sum of 27,000, which is what they had made for the day. Now, Janet says as she was walking home, she would see like two men ahead of her. Like, you know, just like how you can be walking here and then obviously in the front you're seeing two men are walking ahead of you. Janet says she was walking faster than the men, so she obviously caught up to them. Like she was going faster, so she caught up to them quicker. And she says as she caught up with them, that's when things started moving funny. The two men stopped Janet. And then as the two men and Janet are doing like a back and forth of like Janet asking them, hey, like, what's up? What do you want from me, etc., another set of like two men would jump out from the back. So you have the two men that Janet is talking to, then two men come out from the back to basically come walk up to them who are already having the conversation. Janet says the two other men who came, of the two other men who came, one had a gun and one had a black paper bag. The one with the gun literally stuck up the gun to her, and then they all started demanding that she needs to take them home to her husband. They said they wanted something from her husband and she needed to take them to her husband. Now, Janet tried to say, like, hey, you guys have the wrong girl. I'm not the girl. Those men said, you better shut up. You better shut up. Because when I talked the first time, they were like, if you don't stop this rubbish, we'll shoot you here. We'll kill you here because we know you're the girl we're looking for. Janet finally decides to just go along with it. And first of all, she would give the men the 27,000 she was carrying home from the money she had made from the day. And second of all, she would then proceed to give the men her phone, which was a Nokia 2630. Now, according to Janet, she says she would lead the men to Garden Estate. However, she did something very peculiar, even like to investigators later on. She decided to take the men through the back gate, like the back gate of the estate. So the estate was like in the middle of two roads. So there was the main road and then there was the back like entryway that you could enter with. Now the main road, which had the main entrance to the estate, actually had a sum of 6 police officers and I think 2 security guards that were manning the front gate. So if Janet had gone through the front gate, obviously she would have been helped by the police officers. That was like a bit of a red flag. But then again, to an extent, and I'm not playing devil's advocate here, but do you guys not think the robbers or the assailants, let's call them the assailants, would have been like, no, let's not go through the front gate? Like, I don't know. I think like that's something that an assailant would have done. You know what I mean? Anywho's, now something also really peculiar with regards to like the entering of the house happened, and that is even though Janet used the back route to enter into her house, there was actually a log made from the front gate about like someone entering. Now let me clarify what I mean by this. So like I said, Janet used the back route to come in with the assailants, and if I forgot to mention, sorry, the assailants actually had a car, so they were all in a car as they were coming to Janet's place. Anywho, so Janet and the assailants are in the car. They use the back route to enter into Janet's home. However, as they're using the back route, the security officer called Evans at the front gate actually logs in an entry which was very suspicious. Evans logs in an entry that says that there was a car with the registration number KB8657, which was a Toyota Allion, that entered at 8:19 and then left at 8:17. Which one is very suspicious because if they're using the back route, how did you know? How did you know? How do you know? You don't know. How did you log that car in? Second of all, there was no information as to the details, like who was in the car, etc. It was just logged in as like a taxi, which was suspicious because if it's a taxi, the taxi should have said who they're coming to pick up. You get me? Exactly. The second thing that was also very suspicious is how can a car enter at 8:19 and leave at 8:17? How can a car leave before it arrives? Do you see that was a bit weird? But anywho, moving on with the story. So we have Evans at the gate putting in wrong logs, but Miss Ma'am's Janet and the rest of the gang have now been able to enter through the back door, enter through Janet's back gate, and now they're making their way towards the house. Now in the house was Kevin, Janet, and Moses' son. And then there was also Beatrice, who was staying with the family. She was the niece, their niece. A girl is a niece, right? Yeah, she was their niece, and she was staying along with the family on that specific night. They also had the auntie, like the dada, like the house help, whose name was Beth. Now, Janet says she would see Beatrice, the niece, looking through the window. Like, she peeped through the window and saw Janet along with these other men. Now, Beatrice would be the one to open the door when the door was finally knocked, and I'm very sure she was confused as soon as she opened the door, the assailant with the gun comes out and is like, get on the ground, get on the ground, everybody get on the ground. So now there are assailants in the house with the gun. They've come in with Janet. They tell Kevin, Beth, and Beatrice to get on the ground and give them their phones, give them like any kind of thing they had. Now, Kevin didn't have a phone, but Beatrice and Beth would give up their own phones. So now Janet, Beth, and Beatrice don't have phones. Now, after this, the three of them, Kevin, Beth, and Beatrice, would then be thrown into like the downstairs toilet that belonged to the family. The three of them would be kept there while the assailants decided to go upstairs with Janet. So Janet is now gone upstairs with three assailants, and one of them is left to keep watch over the other three, Beatrice, Kevin, and Beth, who are now in the downstairs bathroom. Beatrice says she like couldn't really hear what was being said upstairs. However, with about a few minutes later, she says that Janet was brought to be with the rest of the group. So Janet is now brought downstairs. Now, as Janet comes back down with the other three assailants, one of the assailants wants to be moving crazy. And he now starts to demand that, they should all remove their clothes. And Beatrice, obviously, and the rest are a bit uncomfortable from this. But what even made them more uncomfortable is Beatrice says the assailant came and he was like, remove all your clothes. And then Janet was like, no, it's too cold for them to remove their clothes. They'll get sick. And the assailant was like, okay. Suspicious? Very. Anywho's, so Janet is now, according to Beatrice, having some form of like she has like some form of authority on these assailants. She seems like she was in charge, if I'm trying to make sense, because the assailant would say, let's do this, and Janet would be like, no. And it's in front of everyone else who is literally being brutalized by these assailants. But Janet has not been hit once. She's not been brutalized once. She's not been told to do anything crazy once. She's just there at this point. So Beatrice says that about 12 midnight, one of the assailants who was like outside the house came back inside. Beatrice says that this guy came inside, told the rest that he's going to go and check up, how far with the others, and then he left. When he left, Beatrice says that she could hear him on the phone with someone who was saying to him that they had like reached Thika and that they were almost there. So Beatrice is just looking at all this and they're like, almost where? Like, what's going on? Who is we? How are we? But Beatrice says that's what she was hearing on the phone. Somebody was in Thika and saying that they've almost reached, they're almost there. Now, as this guy finishes on the phone call, he comes back inside to let the rest of his group mates know what exactly had happened on the phone call, etc. And as all of this is happening, one of the assailants now decides to get trigger happy and like he removed a panga, starts sharpening a panga on the wall, and then all of a sudden becomes trigger happy and threatens to like start shooting them up. So it kind of seemed like they received this message, then they started getting ready for something, which, like, because of the removing of the panga and like the threatening to shoot them, like the vibe kind of ramped up. It seemed more of a hostile vibe after this receivement of the message. And surprisingly, Beatrice says Janet was like, "Don't shoot them. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Don't shoot." And the guy was like, "Okay," and he just let it go. Like, am I? What? Are these assailants or not? Now, as all of this is happening, the gunmen are now getting prepared, for whoever is coming from Thika. The family would hear their father, Moses, pull into the driveway at around 2 a.m. Now, Moses was coming from work, and like I said, he comes home from work really late. As soon as Moses gets into the house, he's basically jumped by the gunmen. The gunmen then take him to the upstairs, like bedroom upstairs, while everybody else is in the bathroom downstairs. The family says they would subsequently hear like groans and screams of like pain, and then after that it was silent. After a few minutes, one of the gunmen came down, dead ass looked Janet in the face and was like, "We finished the job." What? Like, auntie, what? Auntie, is that not so suspect? Imagine we've all been captured and everybody, like the gunmen are just communicating to you, and the creme de la creme is them coming to you and telling you, we are done. It's the job is finished. What job? Swiftly after that, the assailants would then order Janet to come with them. So they took Janet and they left everybody else in the and like up they left everybody else in the downstairs bathroom. Let me have some water. My mouth is getting really, really dry. Now, Beatrice says that they would all wait like a few minutes to confirm that the assailants were actually gone before they finally decided to come outside and basically go upstairs and try and see what exactly had happened to their father slash uncle. I'm guessing for Beatrice, but I'm just gonna call him their father at this point because I can't be saying their father slash uncle every time. You just know it's the father slash uncle, but he was the father of the house, Miss Girl. So Beatrice and Kevin, as well as the auntie Beth, decided to go upstairs to go and have a look at what had happened to Mr. Moses. They say that like it was a really gory scene and they got into a panic. Now at this point, Beatrice decides to run out to the front gate to go and tell the police officers at the front gate that, hey, we've literally, something crazy has happened, stuff has happened, this and this has happened, you need to come and you need to come now, somebody has been injured. Now Beatrice and the police make their way back to their family home to go and see what's up. As they make their way there, they're met with Kevin and a neighbor called Kimani basically trying to like lift their dad so they can take him to a hospital. Now the police would request Kimani to really be vigilant and actually make sure that Mr. Moses makes it to hospital, and Kevin would actually take Mr. Moses to the Aga Khan hospital. He was accompanied along with Beatrice, but I'm unsure if Kevin went with them. So now it's Kimani, Beatrice, and Moses. They've gone to Aga Khan. I don't know if Kevin went with them. So the police would stay behind and take the statement of Beth and just basically have a look at the crime scene, you know, close it off to other people to avoid contamination, etc., etc., etc. Now, remember how I said Janet left with the assailants? Yeah. According to Janet's story, she says that the assailants literally forced her to get into her husband's car and basically drive them all the way to Thika. Now, it's unclear why exactly they wanted to be driven to Thika, but Miss Janet says this was the request of the assailants, and since they had her at gunpoint, child, she decided to enter her husband's car and leave. Now, the crew of assailants and Janet would actually use the front gate instead of the back gate to leave. Now, let me just break this down. Now, when you leave and enter through the front gate, they usually write a log like of the car number, who is driving it, where they're going, etc., etc. Now, when Mr. Moses came into the house, the registration of the car said that he came home at around 1:46, and it was very well logged. It said who it was, his car registration, everything. But when the same car left again, only like 30 minutes later, security guard, even though he knew Janet because Janet lived there, didn't write Janet's name in the log. He left that place blank. On top of that, he had literally just given this car a pass, like a gate pass, and for you to leave again, you have to hand in your gate pass. But he wrote the wrong gate pass number, not once, but twice. So you actually ask yourself, what are you doing? You're the same guy who, remember back in the day, I told you how he wrote the wrong entry, like the one for 819, car entering, 817, car leaving, car that was apparently entering through the back gate. Now he's made another mistake with the entry. So Evans is looking like he's in on this gig, but I won't say that because you'll know why later. I'll say that. However, it can be argued that, basically Janet may have moved really quickly. Maybe she was moving super, super fast, and she genuinely didn't give enough time to the gate man to actually put in the name. Maybe she genuinely didn't. Now, like I said, Janet says she was to drive the assailants to Thika. However, she says when they reached Juja, the assailants would order her to stop, and then they jumped out of the car and disappeared into the darkness, never to be seen again. Now, Janet did something very peculiar. Instead of driving back to Garden Estate to go and report the crime, etc., or go and check on her family, Janet would continue to drive towards Thika. Once she reached Thika, she then stopped at the first petrol station she saw, and she then made her way. She walked towards the G4S security guard that was placed at the petrol station, who then took her to the Thika police station, where she was allowed to call her friend and also make a report of the incident. After this, she was actually admitted. She was actually admitted at Thika nursing home to be treated for shock, and there were two officers from the Kasarani police station who actually found her there. Now while they were there, remember I said she was allowed to have a phone call. Janet had called a friend, and while the police were there, they told the friend to take Janet like straight home, don't allow her to go anywhere, make sure this lady gets home. Now Janet would be taken home by her friend, and she got to her house at around 10 a.m. I'll clarify if it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. The police then would just generally like ask her a few questions, like what happened, etc. Now, remember the police at home had been listening to Beatrice and everybody else, and they were hearing Janet's side of the story, and they were like now picking up some red flags that kind of like placed her as a suspect. And so she was now put into police custody for the offense of attempted murder of her own husband, Moses. Now, Janet obviously denied these charges, and she even adds to say, like, this is not the first time they had been attacked by, like, masked, assailants, and like this kind of thing had happened. She says this kind of thing had happened before, but she just hadn't like gone to the police to report it or anything. Which I mean, girl, why wouldn't you report that? The police didn't buy this. The police didn't believe her. Now, things would get worse for Janet because in so much as her husband didn't die from the attack, he was in pretty bad shape, and she wasn't allowed to like go over and see him and, do all the wifely things that she wanted to do with him. Janet says her like family-in-law, basically her husband's family, genuinely believed that she was a killer and they didn't want her anywhere near their son. Furthermore, there were like speculations that started coming out that all this was actually done over like a sum of, I'll put the sum here because I'm forgetting the amount of money, but people started speculating that all this happened because of a specific amount of money that Janet could have been the next of kin to had her husband died. Now, I don't know to what extent this is true, but these are the rumors circulating when Janet is in custody. Now, Janet was pretty adamant that she had nothing to do with this attack on her husband. Now, things would get worse for Janet when it was declared on the 2nd of March in 2010 that her husband had died. So not only did he die without her being able to see him, he also died, which now meant that she was no longer being charged with attempted murder, but she was now being charged with like the proper thing, murder, she wrote. Now, Janet is now being charged with murder, and things are really escalating quickly. And she is very adamant that she didn't do this to her husband. She wouldn't do this to her husband. She says, yes, we have our own little family squabbles, but like, I wouldn't kill the man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Police aren't believing her, and she honestly feels like she needs to do something very quickly to be able to basically help her out of this situation. Janet decides to enlist the services of, like, I don't know what it's called, those people who do post-mortem. What are they called? They're not physicians, Paige. Shh. Anywho, she enlisted someone to come and do a post-mortem on her husband's body. Now, the person's name was Dr. Rogena, who was pretty like experienced in the field, etc. Now, the post-mortemist, I don't know what to call them, I'm so sorry, but they actually decided that Mr. Moses, like the main cause of death, was pre-existing medical issues and acute peritonitis due to periappendicular abscess due to acute appendicitis. Wewe. That in English layman's terms means the inflammation of the peritonical cavity or abdominal cavity due to the rupture of appendix, like of an appendix. Now, I don't know. Because that's what I saw like in the fact. But then again, like there were so many medical terms there. So I will put a disclaimer and say like there were so many medical terms. I understood this to be the one that was like the one that was, number one to kill him. But I will say there were other like things. So you can read the judgment. I'll put it down in the description box below. Now, the post-mortem really didn't help Janet clear her name in any way. And let me say this, I don't know why she thought this was going to help her clear her name, considering the fact that you only get like, I think this would help her if she was being accused of like poisoning her husband. Do you get? I don't see, because you're being accused of, the issue here is not how he died, it's who killed him. So if the issue was how did he die? Did he die by guns? Did he die by poisoning? If you're being accused of poisoning him, then maybe. But yeah, I don't know what this was supposed to prove, but anywho, I guess maybe to take a stance and prove that she's not afraid. I don't know why she did this. And honestly speaking, not only did the post-mortem not help, the investigation is moving on pretty swiftly, pretty solidly. Now, I'm going to give a breakdown of what the investigation into this case actually found. And yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick breakdown. Remember how I had said that a taxi was logged in to have entered at 8:19 and left at 8:17 by the front gate during the same time that Miss Mayan was alleged to have been arriving with the assailants at her own back door, right? Right. Now, I said that was very suspicious considering all the things that I said. Like, number one, they were entering through the back gate. How would you know? Number two, on top of that, how can a car basically leave at 8:17 and it had arrived at 8:19? How can a car leave before it arrives? You get? You get. Now, the police would take a particular interest in that car because they felt like if we can find the car, maybe we can find the assailants. So they used the registration number that had been logged in to track down exactly where that car was and who that car belonged to. Now, the police tracked the car to a Pamoja Women's Development. And when they went to the Pamoja Women's Development, they actually discovered that the car had actually been left there by a Kinywa Mbogo who had left earlier that year to go and study in the Netherlands. Now, police would ask around, at the owners of the Pamoja Women's Development and ask them, who uses the car. And, the head of the Pamoja Women's Development would say, I use the car. And I also give my driver access to use the car, but he honestly has only driven it 3 times. And both of the driver and the guy at the head and the head of the Pamoja Women's Development Program were very adamant that, hey, nobody literally took this car out on that specific 29th, on that specific night in October. That car was here. Nobody took it out unless someone took it without knowing. Now, I will say that I didn't see a conclusion to the issue of the car. I will say that all I saw was basically a back and forth of who had the car. Now, from what I could gather, because I didn't see exact details as to how the car actually left Pamoja Women's Development program and actually ended into the hands of the assailants. And they decided to just have the car brought over to the station and be remanded into police custody for the investigation. Now, that was the first thing that the investigation looked into. The second thing, and which is the most interesting, is the element of the phones. Janet, also Moses, I forgot to mention, Beth and Beatrice had their phones stolen. Kevin didn't have a phone. Shame, Kevin. It's okay. We feel you. We feel your pain. So everybody had their phones stolen, and you guys know how modern technology is a bad babe. Don't play with modern technology because modern technology will catch you. Now, these phones were stolen on the night of the death of Mr. Moses, and they were AWOL. Nobody knew where the phones were, etc. But the police had gone to Safaricom and told them, when this, this phone with this registration number comes up, please, inform us if, when it comes on. I don't know how that technology works. My phone was stolen, and I tried to go and get that to happen. I never got the phone back, Sha, but I was very impressed that, wow, you can just be out here tracking your phone. Now, the first phone to be found was the phone of Miss Janet Karamana. As the investigations were ongoing, Safaricom would call, investigators and let them know that the phone had actually been put on within the Kirinyaga district. Now, the frequency was coming from a line registered to one Mr. Lawrence Karaoke. Now, police would approach Mr. Lawrence Karaoke to ask him, hey, what's up? Where did you get this phone? And that's at which point Lawrence would actually be able to produce a document, a photocopy of an agreement between him and a man named Mr. Anthony Mudhi. Now, from what I could gather, Lawrence tells police that he got the phone from a man named Anthony. Now, Lawrence got the phone from Anthony, accruing from the fact that I think Lawrence owed money to Anthony or something. So something happened for Lawrence to get this phone from Anthony, but bottom line, Anthony gave the phone to Lawrence. The police then call up Anthony, who picks up the phone and tells the police, hey, I actually got the phone from someone else named Peter Minor. Now, police ask Anthony if he can come down to the station, and Mr. Anthony tells the police that, hey, I'm in Nairobi right now, but y'all should actually probably just call up Peter. Call up Peter and fix it with Peter. Police would try to locate Mr. Anthony, and according to Safaricom, they say that, yes, Anthony was in Nairobi, but the problem becomes that Anthony, even though he was in Nairobi, then switches off the phone. So For some time, it's unclear where Anthony is exactly. Police then call Peter Minor, and after they call up Peter, Peter's story was just not adding up, and police would end up arresting Peter for attempted murder based off of the fact that he at some point was in possession of the phone and like there was no clarity exactly. So Anthony is arrested. Peter is arrested. They're both now charged with attempted murder of Mr. Moses. As all of this is going on the 13th of November 2009, police would receive a report that the phone that was stolen from Beth, the house help at the house, had actually been pinged in an area along Mombasa Road. Now, the phone was pinged to a man known as Justus Mutinda, who was then subsequently arrested and questioned. Now, the story of Justus and Beth's phone is the one that really gets me. So pay attention here. Justus is arrested and he says that he actually got the phone from a woman named Virginia as collateral for some money that she had borrowed. Now, the police go to find Virginia and ask Virginia, "What's up, girl?" Virginia then tells police that she actually had that phone because she was given that phone by a man by the name of Clement who had actually borrowed Virginia money. So let me put it out for you. Clement borrows 1,000 shillings from Virginia. Virginia then is like, okay, I'll give you 1,000 shillings, but give me something in collateral. Clement then gives Virginia this phone. After some time, Virginia's child actually gets sick and Virginia needs money to take her child to hospital. So asking Clement, etc., Clement didn't give Virginia the money. So Virginia decides to go over to ask who? Justus for some money so she can be able to take her child to hospital. Justus then gives Virginia the money, but also wants something in collateral. And then Virginia gives out the phone that Clement gave her in the first place for collateral. So you see how it's a merry-go-round? Yeah. So as all this is happening, they ask Virginia, okay, can you identify this guy Clement? Now, Virginia's aunt would be the one to help out identify Clement, and the police would finally find Clement Munyao, who they arrested at Kibera. Now, when police asked Clement, where exactly did you get this phone? Clement would tell the tale of the gods, to be honest. Like, Clement's story is interesting. It's interesting. Clement claims that he bought the phone from a guy named Mark. When they asked Mark, Mark said he got the phone from a guy named Andrew. Andrew then came back round and said, actually, no. I got this phone from Clement. Clement stole this phone, and that's where I got the phone from. So it's like this whole merry-go-round of who exactly has the phone, who doesn't have the phone, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, Clement was arrested. Andrew was arrested. But luckily, Mark wasn't arrested. I don't know why Mark wasn't arrested, but Clement and Andrew were they in the cell you go. In the cell you go. Now, although Clement says like he got this phone from this person who got it from this person, I did read an article where Clement gave like a very interesting take about where he got the phone, which kind of seemed a bit different from what he said in his statement. But I don't know. Maybe this is a backstory to the statement that we didn't know. I don't know. But listen to what Clement says in an interview. Now, Clement starts off by introducing himself as a medical practitioner who graduated from the Nairobi University in 1980 with a bachelor in medicine and surgery. He then graduated with a master's in human medicine and pathology from the same university, and then he went on in 1991 to graduate in Scotland. I don't know where in Scotland, child. He never said. With a master's in forensic medicine. Now, Clement alleges that he was working at Kenyatta Hospital as a neurosurgeon, and his daughter told him that she needed a phone so she could be able to go to school with, right? Right. Now, this was on Clement's mind when basically like during that same week the daughter had asked for a phone. One of his co-workers came up to him and asked Clement if he'd be interested in buying a phone because the co-worker was low on money and he needed to travel for a burial. Clement was like, oh, this is a good opportunity. I can help my co-worker, and on top of helping my co-worker, I can also get a phone for my daughter. What Clement says, and Clement says now he bought this phone from this man, right? Right. And Clement says the daughter went to school with the phone. After some time, the daughter was arrested, and the daughter said Clement is the one who bought the phone. So he came and then he was arrested. But Clement's story was so mixed up because at some point, even in his statement, he changed from saying he got the phone from Mark, and then he now changed the story again and said he got the phone from a boy in Gigiri. And when he was asked like which boy in Gigiri, he couldn't identify the boy. So Clement's story was so murky that it really made it kind of hard to believe him. And in addition to that, Clement's story also got really also got like a lot of Kenyans looking at him sideways. For one, Clement claims that he was a neurosurgeon. Like most of us know, there aren't a lot of neurosurgeons in the world, let alone in Kenya. So the ones who are there are very well documented. He claims he was a neurosurgeon in like the 1980s is when he started his career in neurosurgery. Back then, it was even more rare to hear of neurosurgeons. So not only did you start doing neurosurgery when it was so like rare still, second, there's also now the issue of why are you not listed as one of the neurosurgeons in Kenya. Third of all, Clement claims that he worked at Kenyatta Hospital, but literally workers at Kenyatta Hospital have come out and say we don't know him. Like he doesn't even go here. We don't know him, which is very interesting to even have people come out and say we don't know you, considering the fact that Clement is actually practicing. He's a practitioner practicing while he's in jail right now. So, interesting factoid. Anywho, one of the other things that Kenyans didn't believe about him is people brought up the fact that it's suspicious that you're not telling us the university you went to in Scotland. And in addition to that, people said like the courses he did, like forensics, medical what, they didn't really kind of structure a life as a neurosurgeon. Like those aren't the courses people take to be neurosurgeons. I don't know what courses. Y'all are really informed because me, I was reading the comments. I'm like, gosh, like gosh, like are there actual some things people take to become neurosurgeons? That's crazy. Anywho, long story short, Clement was arrested because ain't nobody was buying his story. And his stories just kept on getting murkier and murkier as we got into it. And he's been in jail since for the past 15 years. He claims that he's lost basically two of his daughters, his wife, and a brother to a car accident as he's been in prison. I will say no one has confirmed or denied this, but who really can confirm or deny this? But basically, what I'm saying is Clement was arrested. In addition, Evans Ombangi Otori, who was the guy who was putting the very suspicious logins into the book, he was also arrested. Janet was also very much so arrested. Anthony Mati was also arrested, and Peter Minor was also arrested. Now, the six of them were all arrested and sentenced. I'm not clear on all of the sentencing, so I'm not going to be saying that here because I'm not clear. Now, this was in 2013, but I do know in 2014, all of them appealed their decision. Now, all of them went to the Court of Appeal. However, not all of them were actually given the outcome they wanted. Now, at the Court of Appeal, it was decided that everyone else was literally free to go apart from Janet, Clement, and Anthony, who were then given the capital punishment. Like it was put right there, like the death penalty, they were put like on death row. So the three of them were still left, and not only were they left, they were now left on they were on death row. Okay? Okay. Now, after this, Miss Janet would decide to appeal by herself. And on the 29th of July 2020, the High Court took the decision that Miss Janet was actually given a very harsh punishment with regards to the death penalty. And they said that it wasn't that necessary to give her the death penalty in the circumstances. But in substitution of the death penalty, Miss Janet would be given 10 years imprisonment starting off from the day of the judgment. So that's from the 29th of July 2020. However, with regards to, I don't know something else, but there was something else that she was told that she couldn't appeal exactly in that specific court, that she had to go to another court to appeal it. But I also didn't really understand that part so much because I feel like the judgments, they're a bit hectic to read. I'm still learning. But yeah, you guys can have a look at that judgment, try and see if you understand what else she was told she couldn't she couldn't appeal in that court. I will link every single thing down below. I saw on Twitter you guys were like talking about how you just read judgments, and so this is the first case that I'm just like going to the judgment itself and just reading and not just looking at like news articles, etc., etc. I will say it was much easier. Anywho, that is the story of Miss Janet Karamana. She is still in prison from what I saw. Clement is still in prison from what I saw. And honestly, what can I say? I feel like I have a few questions. Number one, the question of the car. How did that car that was used by the assailants get into the hands of the assailants so that they could assail? You know what I mean? Second of all, what's the second of all? That's actually it. That's actually the only question I have. Like, how come? How come? Anywho, guys, that is it for me today. I can hear cars starting to go outside, and I know it's only a few minutes before our besties over there, the dogs, decide to bark it up. So I will see you guys in my next one. Please comment down below what you think about this case. What do you have to say? Yeah, but that's it for me today. I will see you guys in my next one. If you want to see more of me, visit my Instagram at Paige Speaks, my TikTok at Paige Speaks, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at Paige Speaks. Bye, guys.